I am not a recent graduate. I graduated from the batch of 2001. Those were the days when I think in LUMS we only had around 120, 130 people in our batch. After graduating from LUMS in computer science, I went to George Washington University and I did my master's in management information systems. And I've been in US ever since. I've started working more in the financial services industry, doing a lot of things like development, systems analysis, program management. And now I'm actually working as the head of data integrations in MassMutual, which is a Massachusetts-based financial services firm. So it's just like coming home now and talking to all the people from LUMS. So it's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Sadia. That was amazing. Rashna, would you like to go next?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having us. I'm Rashna. I graduated from LUMS in 2019, so I'm a recent graduate as well. And right now, I am in my second year of PhD in Northwestern. I'm doing a PhD in CS in computer networking and internet measurements.
Okay. Sana, would you like to go next?
Yeah, thanks. Hi, everyone. I'm Sana. And my introduction will be exactly the same as Rashna's because even I graduated last year. I'm from the 2019 batch, and I'm doing my PhD in Northwestern in networks, which is again the same as Rashna's. So, yeah.
Okay. अब हमने talk को इस तरह divide किया हुआ है, and which was suggested by our panelists थी कि we should go about like 3 phases mainly: before application, life at grad school, and life after grad school, and then we could have a conclusive talk. So मेरी तरफ से सवाल इस session में कम होंगे because I would really like to listen to you guys more. तो जो पहला phase है before application phase, उसका पहला सवाल ये है कि what difficulties did you face while applying? How did you deal with them? And these may include parental or cultural restrictions, difficult choices you had to make, or good choices you made. What helped you get in? Is there anything you would have done differently? Anything at all? We would like to just hear your stories one by one. Anybody can go first.
Okay, I'll go first. For me, you had a few questions, right? You wanted to know about the difficulties and what helped us get in.
Yep.
Right. So I think from my perspective, there was not much of a difficulty in terms of getting the permission because I had that in my mindset that I always wanted to go to US and study there and do my grad school there. So my mother was pretty much prepared. After I graduated from LUMS, I worked for 18 months to 2 years in an offshore company in Pakistan, which I think really helped me with my application process. And I focused a lot on GRE during those 18 months to 2 years, prepared for my GRE. I had a really good GRE score and, very much focused on applications during that time. The difficulty, I think, for me was, to be very honest, my mother was a widow and I didn't want to put a lot of pressure in terms of finances on her. So where I was really going to is I wanted to apply to schools who were ready to give some kind of a financial aid. And that's how I really selected the schools that I wanted to go into and ended up getting in GW, which did provide me a TAship, teaching assistantship. So what really helped me, I think so, was a smart thing that in my mind I did, because I realized that a lot of kids these days, or even at that time, people were not doing it. Everybody wants to go to the best school. Oh, I just have to go to an Ivy League. That's all I need to do. And I just want to make sure, based on where I'm coming from, now that I have an experience, it's good to be an Ivy League, but honestly, it's not the end of the world. There are a lot of other schools where you could go to. If you network effectively, you could get a really, really good job out of that. So don't just stick yourself to, this is all I want to do. I applied to 3 tiers of schools. I applied in Ivy League, I applied to Columbia and Dartmouth. And then I applied in the top 50, which was State University of New York at Buffalo and George Washington University, and these two are in the top 50. So I applied to Tier 1, top 50, and I also applied to University of Oklahoma just to see that if something doesn't work out, there's always a potential of transfer. And I did get into Dartmouth. I did get into GW, State University of New York, and Oklahoma. I did not get into Columbia. I had a rejection there, and that's okay. So I got into GW, and I ended up going to GW. It's a very interesting story because I ended up going there for a couple of reasons. I was looking at the factor where is a bigger city, which provides better opportunity for me to network. And also because my sister was married and she was in the DC area. When I went into GW, as soon as I accepted, I landed there, I got admitted into Dartmouth with the 30-40% scholarship. And that was, I think, one of the toughest decisions that I made because I had Dartmouth, I had done half a semester of GW, and I really thought through that. Should I switch? Should I not switch? I did not switch for a couple of reasons. Number one, when I had gone into GW and I settled there in a few months, I was able to find teaching assistantship. And with teaching assistantship, what they provided me was out of every 3 courses per semester, 2 were free. And they were giving me also a monthly stipend, so which was a much more financial benefit for me. And then I talked to a few professors around that should I go into an Ivy League in Dartmouth? If I'm not sure if you know, it's in New Hampshire. It's literally a campus by itself, while George Washington University was giving me exposure to a lot of employers in the area, including I ended up doing an internship in Pentagon as well. So with that being said, I decided to stay. I sometimes feel bad as well that I missed the Ivy League opportunity. But in the bigger scheme of things, I really don't think it made a difference because I was able to network and I was able to get into my first job out of school was working with an alumni who was starting his own firm. And I ended up doing really well there. And then after that, I've been progressing well in my career. So I think the advice that I would have, apply to different levels. Do not get stuck that this is the only school I want to go. There are lots of other schools which are very diverse and where employers come in, where they come in and where you do get the opportunities to end up in the workspace after that. That would be my
story. That was an amazing story. I really enjoyed it personally. Would anybody also like to share their stories?
I can go ahead. My method not as calculated or as ambitious as Satya's. I would trust her more than me as I share my story. I wasn't very ambitious. So just a background, which I normally don't get to share with everyone. I never took sciences in O&A levels. And as a result, when I decided to switch from econ to CS at LUMS, I had to now take 5 physics courses and then all the bio and chemistry and the math. I was very burnt out by the end of it. And by senior year, I was extremely tired and I felt like I just needed a break from everything. But I had been helping out my seniors when they were applying for their PhDs and masters. So I was the only one in the CS department who enjoyed writing. And apparently it's a rare skill in the CS department. So I ended up helping a lot of my seniors out with their grad applications. So I kind of had an idea of how to write an SOP and just that sort of whole domain. But when it came to me, so this was, I think, fall senior year. And I was like, I'm not applying. Everyone else was applying. I was like, I'm done. I'm exhausted. I need a year off. And then Dr. Fareed Zafar, who I think all of you know, he said to me, he's like, Aman, आपने कोई मसला है? You're smart. कोई आपको कोई disability है, कुछ है जिसकी वजह से आप नहीं जा सकती. मैं कहा नहीं sir, लेकिन अम्मी नहीं मानेंगी. But he was like, you bring her in. I'll talk to her. आप apply तो करें. And I was working for Dr. Fareed as a research assistant at that point. And sir was like, apply to these places. MIT, I wanted to apply to MIT, Harvard, Stanford, Princeton, Berkeley. And like I said, होने तो वाला नहीं है, but because I worked for you, I'll apply. And because of all the peer pressure, मैं GRE भी दे देती हूँ. GRE I took while I had dengue. I went, took the test. GRE was okay. No, it wasn't a bad score, but it wasn't even like MIT material. So I was dead sure I'd never get in. So I never thought ahead कि आगे क्या होगा, I have to move to a new country or any of that. I was like, I'm just applying for the sake of it. कि चलो ठीक है, कर लेते हैं. So I pretty much winged it. I applied, didn't spend too much time on my essays, didn't spend too much time in the entire process. That's when I'm saying, follow Sadia ji, don't follow what I did. But Hawaii, February 14th, I'm in the CS department, and I see an email from MIT, congratulations, you've been selected. And मैं पढ़ रही हूँ, and I'm like, ये कोई मेरे ऊपर prank play कर रहा है, because we had taken, I think CS 200 में there was this assignment जिसमें SMTP protocols के through we were faking each other and sending each other fake emails. तो मैंने कहा यार किसी ने मेरे साथ कोई हैंड किया है. मैंने फौरन फोन लाके सिर्फ फरीद को पकड़ाया. मैं कहा सर ये देखिए ये आपको कुछ प्रैंक लग रहा है. एंड डॉक्टर फरीद इज लाइक oh my god, Aman, oh my god. And then उसके बाद पूरा CS department just came around us. And I was like, oops, ये तो असल में हो गया. Because I never thought, मैंने कहा मैं कैसे जाऊंगी? How will I do this? But so first of all, before applying, so my parents did end up coming to LUMS to meet Dr. Fareed. And Abu was convinced. So MIT was always my dream school since grade 8 when I read Dan Brown's book, Digital Fortress, and the protagonist was from MIT, and she was a cryptographer. And MIT wala dream was always there. Overall, I realized over time my math was terrible to become a cryptographer. मैं कहा चलो वो वाला go तो चला जाता. We'll do computer science. So I knew CS करना, I knew MIT जाना. So अब्बू ने जब कहा undergrad में कि बेटा तुम LUMS जा रही हो, उसके अलावा तुम कहीं नहीं जा रही फिलहाल. MIT बाद में सोचेंगे. If you get into grad school, I'll let you go, no strings attached. But अम्मी नहीं मान रही थी because you know all the committee party aunties would tell you कि ओ आपकी बेटी की शादी कैसे होगी, ये क्या आप भेज रही हो, तो अब क्या होगा बेचारी के साथ. All that kind of narrative kept coming to me, and as a result, Ammi was very, very apprehensive. Dr. Fareed ne convince kiya, and I remember one of my class fellows, he came to me, he's like, why do you have your parents at LUMS? We're no longer in school. Why do you need them to be here? And sometimes our male colleagues don't really realize how hard it is for us and how we want to kind of do right by our parents as well. And I felt that that's what was needed at the time. So if it's okay if your parents need convincing, it's okay if people want to ask their parents to come in and talk to your professors, because at times आपके parents को भी नहीं पता होता कि about your talents or your skills. I didn't think I had any of it. So they needed that reassurance and that convincing, which I got at that time. So don't be like apologetic about it. And then eventually, so jab ho gaya admission, then eventually, alhamdulillah, heard back from Stanford and Harvard. And then I had to decide, you know, from all of those. And then MIT, because the program, which Mariam is also a part of, we don't really pay anything. Essentially, we get paid to study. So we get a stipend based off our research or teaching assistantship. And on top of that, well, half of our program is covered by the professor, whereas the other half is covered by the program itself. So I often joke, hey, MIT paid me to study, but it was an incredible experience, and I didn't have to have any drain on my parents' pockets, which was another concern for me. कि उन्होंने मुझे पढ़ा लिखा लिया है over time, school पढ़ा दिया, LUMS पढ़ा दिया, which was also very expensive. I didn't want them to have that burden, but eventually made it there. So I think for me, it was a lot of the emotional thing. I think over time, I had lost confidence in myself. And as women, we tend to be some of our strongest critics. Like I think over time ये भी होता है कि you lose sight of your own technical ability. So for instance, group projects में often लड़के क्या करते थे, कहते थे ओ अमन को पकड़ा दो सारी flowery details, she'll do the presentations, we'll focus on the code. And over time, I just became completely like underconfident as far as my coding abilities were concerned. I thought I couldn't program for the life of me till I got to MIT, and then amongst like biological engineers and chemists, वगैरह, I was the only one who could code. So that's when I started getting my confidence back. So I think generally, एक तो parents का होता है, cultural होता है aspect, but then there's also this emotional sort of barrier that you need to break within yourself, and psychologically, you are good enough. At times हम सोचते नहीं अपने आप को, हम लोग हमेशा नीचे लेते आते जाते हैं, but surround yourself with people who support you. Because I still remember the people who supported me to now, and the people who brought me down and told me, oh, तुम्हारा admission इसलिए हुआ क्योंकि तुम लड़की हो, या इसलिए हुआ है because तुमने कोई sob story मारी होगी. And those faces are still very clear in my head, unfortunately. I haven't been able to shake them out. But then I also remember the people who stood by me, who pushed me harder. So surround yourself with people who support you and don't bring you down. That would be my advice. Other than that, strategically follow Satya ji.
That was an amazing story, Aman. It was really heartwarming to hear. Just to add a little to this, Aman is being really, really modest क्योंकि सर फरीद ने हम सब के साथ इनके application material share किया हुआ है, and her resume is mind blowing. So she's being extremely modest when she says कि she didn't think she मतलब उनको किसी ने इस तरह बताया भी कि she's not good enough. She's amazing and she deserved where she is today. Would Mariam, Rashna, or Sana want to tell their stories?
Sure. I can go.
Sure.
Well, that's a tough thing to follow, first of all, because I feel already inspired. I'm like, damn, I can do stuff now. But I guess for me, the biggest challenge was like getting over myself, honestly. I have had very high anxiety, and most of the time it's very hard for me to like believe in myself that I can do whatever. And a lot of people were surprised, like in my batch, and even I was working with Sarpreet as well, that I didn't think that I could get into these like amazing places. I was like, yeah, I'm doing great at LUMS, but that doesn't mean I'll be great at MIT or I'll be great at Harvard. Like, this is just LUMS. This is a small pond. That's why I'm good. It's not because I'm talented. So that was definitely something that I had. I had a lot of support from professors, and I had a lot of support from friends. And one of the things, and one of the reasons why I had a lot of support from professors was I was genuinely very annoying. Like, I would go into professors' offices and be like, I don't know what to do. What do you think? And that was very helpful, honestly, for me. Just like finding out and like mapping like what options are out there, what options are here if I stay back home and not apply abroad. And even like the decision to like go into professor's offices was very tough for me because again, like anxiety. So I used to like stand outside the professor's office for like 5 minutes, going like, go in, not go in, go in, not go in. And once I remember I was outside Suresan's office. I wanted to ask his advice, and I kept going like, knock, no, no, that's not. And then I turned around and he was coming from the corridor. And I was just vacillating in front of his door. So that was fun. So yeah, so one of the things that I really believe in is that if you see an opportunity, like go for it. All you need is like literally 5 seconds of courage. After I've knocked on the door, I can't run away. So that's all you need, just 5 seconds, even if you don't believe in yourself, even if it's very hard. So definitely do that. Second thing that was like very helpful for me in my grad apps especially was connecting with alumni, honestly. I am very horrible at talking, just generally, much horrible at talking to strangers. So that was, again, like a big leap that I had to do. And Aman was like extremely helpful in that regard. Like Aman is one of the reasons I'm at MIT. But so that definitely helped. And I talked to so many alumni. I like looked them up on LinkedIn. I talked to professor like who is out there and like tell me, and can you connect with me? And if they can't connect with me, then I would like stalk them on Facebook and message them. So definitely like another thing that was really helpful was like research, just like reaching out to people, finding out what's out there. And I didn't have a lot of like pushback from my parents. I had decided like in terms of funding that I wasn't going to ask my parents for funding anymore, that I was going to apply to only programs that had funding. So I applied mostly for PhDs and for some programs, master's programs that provided RA-ship or TA-ship. So that was also like a decision that I made. I didn't have a lot of pushback because last year before I applied, my younger sister got into MIT as well. And that was the time where we had the actual pushback because my parents didn't know what MIT was. They knew what Harvard was. So that was the translation that we made. It is Harvard, but technical Harvard. And because I really wanted my sister to go and like money was a concern, I was like very, very like, that's when I actually fought because I fought for her. I was like, I know it's a lot, but it's a good investment and she's going to have so many opportunities there. This is like an amazing door. And convincing my mom that this is going to like, ladki ko bahar nahi bhejna wala issue, like all of us that feel at some certain level. So I guess me being there, me not going and her going was like what pushed my mom, like, okay, if like my older daughter thinks that it's okay, maybe it is. So that was one thing that was like, I guess, helpful for me in my time because then I didn't have to really fight for it. It was like, okay. And yeah, that's about it.
थैंक यू मरियम. इसमें से जो आपने बात की alumni को रीच आउट करने की, the very fact that 5 of you are here and taking time out on like a very early in the morning in your time zones just goes to show that our alumni network is really, really strong, and we should reach out to them, and we should be, especially being women, we should be there for each other. Rashna or Sana, would you like to take over?
Yeah, I can go ahead. So for me, by the way, I'm really inspired by all of your stories, and it feels really great to hear. For me, the difficulty that I faced was that I had already told my parents since like my early years of undergrad that I do want to go for grad school. So they were sort of already prepared for like, you know, me applying for my master's. But what I struggled was when in my last year, I started doing research. So convincing them for PhD was harder for me because that meant like a much longer time. And, you know, I did not have examples in my family who had done PhD. So it was like, that was the tougher part for me. But I was already working with professors, so I told them that I'll go ahead with the applications and I'll just apply there and go ahead with the process. So I gave my GREs, I've applied to a lot of places. So that's what my recommendation to other students would be to who are also facing like problems with permissions and all. Just go ahead and start the process, convince them to like, you know, let you go through the process and just apply and just take a step-by-step approach, because once you have applied and you get the offers and like if you have good opportunities, it's sort of easier to convince them, because either like they could get convinced because the opportunity is really good, or they could get convinced because like Aman mentioned, you know, professors can talk to your parents or you have friends going to those places. So like things become easier after you have offers, and just don't, you know, get like by the lack of permission, just don't get scared and not apply. So that would be my recommendation. And for like in the application process, it's always a good idea to apply to a lot of tiers, in different tiers, because it improves your admission chances. And for if you're applying for PhDs, it's always a good idea to look out for professors who are actually taking new students and whose work aligns with you, or if the advisors you're working at already know those professors, and that really improves your chances of like admission.
Okay. Rashna, how would you say कि time commitment में आपने कैसे convince किया अपने parents को कि PhD करना है, time commitment वाला?
उसमें यही था कि I told them कि जो है ना offer आ गई, and I really like funding was a big thing. So like, you know, once you do get funding and there's this idea of independence and like, you know, a great opportunity. So I think that already like both that's like a step like जो वो convince हो जाते हैं. And with the time situation, personally मुझे like my mom was always on board. So it was my dad who needed convincing. And I think just by the fact that I really wanted to do it and funding wasn't a problem and it was a good opportunity, that was like, that helped in convincing. Like, that was
Okay. Okay, Sana, on to you.
Hi. So Rashna seems to have covered enough ground regarding PhD and applications, and also I try not to like repeat the same thing. But what is specific to me is taking permission from my parents. Like I have struggled for that throughout my entire life. When I was applying for my LUMS application, I had to like beg and cry. And on the last day of like finalizing if you're coming or not, my parents finally agreed because I just couldn't stop crying. So that was how bad my situation was. And then fast forward 3 years, all of my friends are applying for a GRE, and then I'm just like, even I want to go like, but it had never crossed my mind. It only crossed my mind because I had this group of 15, 20 people, and out of those 20 people, 15 were applying to go. And I'm just like, I don't want to be here. Like, I want to also study abroad, and I want to experience that whole life, and I want a job abroad and all. So I started like, I approached the topic with my parents pretty carefully, and I wanted to be really smart about it, because if I just like threw it at them that I want to go, so they would have like outrightly said no. So initially I was just like, I want to apply for a GRE, everyone's giving it and it might be helpful. If if I want to apply, though that's not sure yet, but I don't want to regret anything. So can I just please apply, like give my GRE? And I knew I couldn't ask them for a lot of money for my GRE and applications because they weren't convinced anyway. So like I knew this was my one shot at the GRE. So like I studied really hard. So that was my motivation for the GRE. I got a normal score, but that's a different story. And then all of my friends are applying. And Sir Farid is encouraging me, and I'm just like, okay, I want to apply too. So I go to my parents and I'm like, just let me apply because I want to see if I can get into these good places. And then we'll talk about whether I want to go or not later on. Like, just think about it. I don't need an answer right now, but I really want to apply. So one of the bad things about not having your parents' support was that I was not really encouraged to do my best in those applications, which I still regret. Like I didn't apply to enough places because I felt bad asking for money from my parents. In that regard, I did start saving, and I was telling my parents that I use my own money to apply. I just really want to apply. So you can't don't stop me on that. So then they got convinced and I applied to 9 places, which is like a good enough number. Also, one side note, when we went to Sir Farid regarding which places to apply to, he did recommend the different tiers, as Sadia mentioned. But also he recommended that since a bunch of us were applying from the batch, we were like 20, 25 people, he said, make sure to like divide all of the universities among you guys so that there's not much of an overlap. So like make sure not more than 2 or 3 people apply to the same university because the university ends up taking maximum 2 people. On an average. So like me and Rashna got into Northwestern, which we thought was like a big miracle because we were under the assumption that no one gets into the same university. So yeah, like a bunch of you don't apply to the same university.
Okay, we need to coordinate then.
Yeah, you do. We did. We coordinated. We made lists and then we cross-checked and everything. So
okay.
Anyway, then I applied to a bunch of universities and I wasn't really motivated because I'm like, will I even end up going? And I might not, like, I never thought that I actually end up going. But I forced myself to work hard. And one of the things that did encourage me was that I was surrounded by like 15 people who were applying along with me. So like, if you're discouraged, try to surround yourself with a lot of people who are applying. Like me and my friends, we used to sit in the PhD lab, which is an SSC, and we all used to like work on our SOPs together and make each other read it. And so that was good for me. Like, I think if my friends weren't applying, I wouldn't have ended up applying because I didn't have enough motivation on my own to convince my parents and do the whole thing. So that was good for me. So like, yeah, note, surround yourself with friends who are applying.
So can I add one?
Sorry, yeah.
I wanted to add one thing because, I probably from the perspective of age, I'm older than all of you. Not probably, I am older than all of you. And, I've seen how, when I left LUMS, when you're leaving LUMS and the culture of LUMS and the pressure to be your best at LUMS, that's there. And you're surrounded by really, really smart people. So personally, I think me and a lot of other women, they go through the process, and even men, that I may not be as smart as person A, because it's a very, very competitive school. I don't think there is, nobody can deny that. In that process, at that age, we tend to forget what our true strengths are, and I really believe in this because if I'm talking to all the people here, don't get disheartened that, okay, there is one person in MIT, there is one person is here. Oh my God, my life is nothing if I don't get to that school. Think about what your true success is and think about what your strengths are. As Aman said, her strength was writing. That is going to remain her strength, and that's going to always help her in her career. Whoever has a different strength, focus on that strength. And when you apply to schools, even when you pick your tiers, it's amazing to go into an Ivy League, but think outside of the box. Think of areas which are not an Ivy League and where people have had success. So that would be my biggest advice. And just because you may be applying to a school that's a number 52 and somebody got into a school that's a number 2, that doesn't determine much in the future. You have to go there, you have to build your experience. Grad school is more about going in there, networking with the right people, building your experience, building your confidence, so that when you get into the workspace, it's the confidence that matters. After 5-10 years down the line, people are not going to ask about your school, but they will look into the confidence that you have gained from that school. So, and we tend to forget this. You know, even when I was applying, I was like, oh my God, if I don't get into Dartmouth, my life is going to come to an end. It is a little bit of that. And guess what happened? I got in, I still didn't go, which I sometimes still regret a little bit, but I was like, okay, maybe other things worked out from the choices. So my biggest advice is when you guys are applying, please do not get intimidated because somebody else has a higher GPA, is smarter than you, and is applying to a certain space. Do not get into comparison. Apply to the places and think about the focus around how you can grow and what you want out of your life. Because 15 years down the line, I was in a 2003, got into GW 2003, graduated 2005. Now, 15 years later, it matters, but your perspective really changes. So keep that in mind. That would be my biggest advice as you think about applications.
That's such a good piece of advice, Adya. Thank you so much. Just talking about the things Sana mentioned, मसला ये हो रहा है कि हम घर बैठे हुए हैं, 8 महीने से हम घर बैठे हुए हैं, and हमारा जो network है वो थोड़ा dilute सा हुआ है. A lot of my friends who initially 3 months ago wanted to apply have said कि नहीं, छोड़ो, let's just go for a job. Like corona हो जाना है, defer हो जाएंगे admissions. So there's this added pressure, not just for girls, for guys as well. We're all thinking of not applying क्योंकि पिछले साल के applications अब defer होके हमारे batch के साथ आएंगी, नौकरियां हमें मिल नहीं रही. बहुत weird situation हुआ है. तो the fact of PhD lab में साथ बैठ के network करना, वो भी opportunities हमारे पास नहीं है. I think somebody also mentioned in the Q&A कि it's really hard for us to go to our instructors' offices right now. वरना हम usually when LUMS was open, मैं सर एहसान या सर फरीद के ऑफिस में ही बैठी रहती थी हर time. I used to talk to them more than I talk to my batchmates. पर वो situation अब नहीं है. So just adding to that, in this situation, since you guys are working and since you guys are studying abroad in a similar situation as we are, how are you tackling with the fact the isolation or keeping your confidence and your motivation up during times like these?
So, okay, there will be times will always be difficult, and never try to get your confidence for people who surround you. You know, it does not come from what person A says, what person B sees. You know, just अमन ने एक example बताइए, अमन को flashy thing दे दो, हम quote कर लेंगे, तो बहुत जिंदगी में हमेशा होगा. No matter what you do, where you go, you will be bullied down in a soft way by other people. You will be discouraged. So situation कभी easy नहीं होती है. When I started applying, हर एक ने कहा था, ओ कुछ भी नहीं होना क्योंकि September 11 हुआ है, किसी को कोई वीजा ही नहीं मिलना, ओ क्या फायदा है. And I remember when I was working in Islamabad, वहां तो it was really like it was a men's world. You know, कोई लड़की बस ये काम कर रही है, ओ तुम्हारा जीआरई का इतना स्कोर आ गया, like people were shocked कि लड़की का जीआरई स्कोर नहीं आ सकता. So you just have to take a step back. Corona hai, my advice would be still apply, because if you think from the perspective कि यहाँ क्या situation है, यहाँ colleges को लोग apply इसलिए नहीं करे क्योंकि आजकल लोग US नहीं आना चाह रहे because of the political environment, and also because of universities. No, I know a lot of people in GW is openly saying, and other schools as well, what about international students, who's going to come? So do not deter this from applying. Do apply, and apply, as you know, as I've said, apply to multiple tiers. Do that. As far as networking is concerned, I think now is the easiest time to network. Look at me. I don't think I've met with any one of you, and I just got connected with Aman on LinkedIn, right? So alumni network hai, people are out there to help. If you're LinkedIn is the best in a way. If you're interested in applying in a school, आप जाएं, आप जाके search करें उस school का, and आपको अपने LUMS के alumni मिल जाएंगे जो school गए हैं. And then start reaching out to people. Put yourself out there. Reach out to people. What is the worst that can happen? People don't respond. Okay, so what? Who cares? Move on to the next person. So stay with that attitude. I got to do what I got to do, regardless of whatever the situation is. मैंने यहाँ apply करना है, होता है तो हो, नहीं होता I'll apply to another place. So a little bit of determination and persistence. Discouragement is always going to be there, but don't let it bring you down. That would be my biggest thing.
Yeah, I'll just echo Sadia as well. Right now, I mean, these are unprecedented times, right? But just think about all the time that you're getting, that extra, the time that you're not spending at Coca or elsewhere, that extra time. So use that time, apply. It's actually way more manageable now. Dorm wale people don't even need to focus on laundry or whatever, or sleeping without an air conditioner or whatnot. You have all this extra time that you can now use to just apply. Don't focus on kya hoga, visa aega, nahi aega, because universities are also responding. Everyone's trying to adjust and adapt right now. Best thing you can do is to just go ahead, apply. And what will help is also just continue with research. I mean, professors are still accessible. I still have Dr. Farid at least once in 2 weeks or so. I'm still connected to him. If he can take out time for me, I'm sure he can take out time for all of you applying right now. So use that time effectively. Don't get discouraged. Just apply. Worst case क्या होगा, ठीक है, differ हो भी जाए, अगले साल चले जाएंगे. At least you have an admission with you. Everyone's adjusting and adapting, so it's not just you guys. So don't get deterred by any of this. Just go ahead and apply, and connect with us. Reach out to me on LinkedIn as well. If I can help in any way, I'd be more than happy to do so.
Thank you, guys. That's really inspiring to hear. Acha, moving on to our next phase. Now we're done with the application phase. We're going on to the phase which is life at grad school. Now, life during your degree. Uske topics of discussion hai कि what difficulties did you face during your time at grad school and how did you deal with them? What were your support mechanisms, your life at grad school in general as a female in tech, given that numbers even in grad school बहुत high नहीं होते, हमारी ratios वहाँ भी बहुत off होती हैं. Any choices you made, housing particularly because you were moving to a new place as a girl, maybe you got joint housing or you got a separate place, anything about that, and what things you thought were different culturally for Pakistan se compared wahan jaake.
Okay, so it seems I'm the first one to answer. I'm looking at everyone's stuff. Okay, anybody else want to go? I can go next. Or should I just go ahead?
I can go first.
Go ahead, Mario. We'll switch it around.
Yeah. One of the things that Anushi mentioned was housing. So my suggestion would be that when you're moving to a new place, try looking at grad housing, because that is so much more simpler. I didn't realize until I moved out of grad housing, but it's much simpler. You have support of the institute itself, and your parents are much happier with the fact that you're staying at school, even if it's not at school. But that definitely helps. The only cases where people wouldn't want to live in grad school is if it's very expensive, or if you find other Muslim Pakistani alums or alumni going with you or have been there. So in that case, you have an option to stay with them next year or find a new place. I did a bunch of stuff for when I moved outside of grad housing that I never thought I would do in my entire life. I set up my water and electric bill. I bought a Wi-Fi device, set that up, called the company. I set up my own curtains. I used my own I got a drill machine from MIT libraries, drilled the curtain stands and the curtains itself alone while I was standing on the table. So all of these different things that I never thought I would do, I was able to do it. And the thing is, what I've realized is that everything seems very daunting, but when the time comes for it, trust in yourself, you'll find a way. And sometimes when I can't, sometimes when it's very hard for me, I've realized that I have had a lot of support. And that's support from friends back home. When I was starting, when I was moving to a new place, I showed them these are my options, which is better. And they really can't give me a lot of advice, honestly, because they don't know, but they were still there and they were okay, this looks better or that looks better. Then there's also support from a lot of Pakistani community here abroad. If you really look into it, there is always going to be a alums chapter, Pakistan chapter, Pakistani alum chapter, or alums alum chapter in most of the places you go. Because trust me, you'll find LUMS alumni almost anywhere. All you have to do is like maybe network a little hard and like look for them a little harder. I've met a lot of like MIT alums who are like in their 60s, and which is a very weird like age gap to like connect with, but it has become possible because you find like all of these emails or these email threads where people are posting of like events for like Muslims, Pakistanis. So trust me that even if you don't feel like you have a support network right now, you will. And sometimes all you have to say, I'm Pakistani or I'm Muslim, and people will be like, oh, like you're part of our family. And it'll be as simple as that. And in terms of like how to keep your values or like have the choice of like what values you want to keep abroad, that is a question that like really comes up, because like for me, I'm like very open about my religion. So a lot of like my friends would come up to me and ask me like, what does halal mean? Why can't you drink? And all of these like questions, which after some time do become annoying. But like it made me a better Muslim, honestly, because I looked into this stuff, because I was like, I actually don't know. I just know that this is something that we're supposed to do. So it's like nice sort of like self-discovery and like things that are okay with and things you're not okay with. I remember one instance when I was in class, the class was done, and me and my friend who's Muslim, she's from the US. Both of us went to the class professor and like we were asking about certain things about the course. And after we were done, he like extended his hand. He was like, well, thank you guys for like being here. And it's very hard to like, when you have a hand in front of you, to like not shake it, even if you've never done that in your entire life. But she was like, oh, I'm sorry. Like my friend was like, oh, I'm sorry. I don't shake hands. And the professor was completely fine with it. I was so shocked. I was like, what are you doing? This is like a celebrated professor. He has books. He helped make the internet. But she was just like, no, I'm sorry. This is like, I'm not comfortable with it. And you'll find out that there's like a lot of acceptance in a lot of the places that you will go to. Like I know we hear a lot about like this, the racist and Islamophobic US, which does exist. I mean, it's not just the media, but like a lot of the universities, at least you'll be going to, you should have the confidence and the freedom to say that, oh no, this is something I'm not okay with. And people will be like fine with it, even though you think they won't. So like really just like be comfortable and like things will work out.
Agree. So I just want to second that. When you land in United States and when you're in that school, in my mind, it's very psychological, and I've seen all kind of students and how they have changed their ways. Some have stuck to their values, others haven't. And the difference that I see between people is, if you're going for grad school and you are focused on, this is what I want to do, this is where I want to grow, versus if you're going with a desire to fit in. Those are very different mindsets, right? Going with a desire to fit in, that's a totally different desire. You're gonna never have the confidence to say who you are, to say what you believe in, because you have this inherent desire, I have to fit in. And that's gonna take over you eventually, because you're different, you'll always be a minority. And if you continue to have the desire to fit in, you're never gonna fit in. That's never gonna happen. So if you go in with this, as Maria was saying, you go in with more like, okay, this is what I want to do. This is what I focus. These are my values. So for instance, I'll give my example. I'm serious about my religion. And I, of course, wanted to always be open about the fact that I don't drink and I eat halal. That was important to me. That was important for my family. That was important to me. So it became very difficult for me initially to find the right roommates, because I was in grad school and I had to live on campus, and it was a personal choice. I didn't want to live with a roommate in whose value system was so different from me that it became a clash. And it took me, I was fortunate enough that I had my relatives there, and I was able to stay there for a month or so till I was figuring this out. but housing is a big thing. So you be open about it, that I'm looking for housing, in GW at least, there were ads all over, and this is the housing that I'm looking for, and this is the kind of roommate I'm looking for. And eventually I ended up finding, this is very surprising, but I ended up finding 2 Indian girls from India, who were looking for similar people like I was looking for. Both of them did not drink, and both of them had this thing from their families that they wanted to stay when they were not into live-in boyfriend relationships, right? They wanted to be with people who did not have that. And we just clicked. And I lived with them for, for more than a year. And it just was perfect because, one of them, actually both of them were Christians, and they were following their Christianity. And in the same apartment, I was reading the mass. And there was a lot of openness about it, no issues, because I took the time to find out people who were like me rather than compromising and living with someone that, I was like, oh my God, well, how is this going to happen? So if you're very clear in your head, this is the kind of people I want to live with. And if you don't find a roommate, then try to go with a single housing, but just be very sure of what you want to do and the kind of people you want to stick around with. One of the challenges in grad school that I did have is, I think going from LUMS, when you have a very good network, people get along really well, it's all similar. When you go to grad school, you realize, oh, I do not have friends the way I made friends at LUMS. And I think that was probably the hardest part for me, because even when I was meeting some Pakistani people, their values were very different. So that the thing about, oh, I'm from Pakistan, that doesn't apply sometimes, because people could have different values. And so for me, it was like, okay, I don't have a lot of friends, but after a while, when I found my roommates, and after a while, it's like, okay, that's fine. It is what it is. So just be comfortable in your skin. And when you have so much focus on what to be done, and you're focused on getting a right GP and things like that, the rest of it is going to be in the background.
And Mariam Sadi, thank you so much. That was super powerful. Just want to maybe keep a few things so I can get Sana and Rashna to speak as well. I think for me, I decided to go and stay alone. So do grad housing, but stay in like an individual suite apartment. And the reason was I didn't want to have like drama at like back when I got home, and then, still have to work through MIT and all of that. So I was like, okay, let me go for a year, do it, let me live alone. And then maybe next year I can decide to kind of live with someone. But I actually thoroughly enjoyed living alone as well. And I had a really good dorm where people interacted a lot, and our dorm officers were great. So I ended up becoming part of that community as well. The Muslim Students Association, Pakistanis Association were like big support groups for me as well. And generally with us Pakistanis, somehow we end up finding people everywhere in the world. There's always one degree of separation. I have like bumped into LUMS alumni in Rome, in Turkey, like class fellows randomly on a train. We're everywhere. So you'd be surprised. Koi nahi kisi chachi ki mummy ka koi nikal aata hai, koi na koi nikal aata hai. So there's always someone, regardless of wherever you go in the world, koi na koi mil jata hai. So, always ask around from your family, from your friends, if they know anyone. So you at least have one or two people. When I went, I think it was one other person from LUMS who joined the urban studies department there. But other than that, I didn't know anyone. So it was all trying to get to know, friends of friends and people, and find out at least I have one or two people there in case something goes wrong, or in case I need help, or like winter coat shopping or whatever. And then my mom actually accompanied me to like drop me there. I think she needed that sort of, comfort. Ki main theek hu, I'm safe, I'm in a proper space. So, your parents might want to just accompany you just to see you settle in. And my mom needed that. I think for 2 weeks she was there, and I really appreciated that as well. One of the things that I really stood out to me was just the pace in life in the US, at least in the East Coast. I remember first class at MIT, I'm sitting with my laptop open, and the professor is like, okay, you'll have your Thanksgiving holiday on the 24th and 25th of November. And I'm like, abhi to August hai. Why is he talking about November? And I look around, everyone has a Google Calendar open, and would dal rahe hain, or plane tickets ki websites khuli mein cheezein ho rahi hain. And I asked someone, I'm like, listen, why are we doing this right now? They're like, oh, Aman, you get really good discounts. So people book like 6 months in advance usually, but this is still pretty late for us. And I was like, oh, ye hota hai Google Calendar. So I really need to learn how to use it. because people there, if they say they want to meet you, it's not like the Pakistani, ha milenge, please hamare ghar aiye type. If they say they want to meet you, they will book a slot on your calendar for you. So that happened. So the pace was different. So that was one thing I had to adapt to. Dusri baat ye, I figured out very early on, I was not okay with like drinking gatherings. I felt very uncomfortable, as people start drinking, they become very casual, but then also very loud. And I just didn't like the entire atmosphere of it. And that I figured out very early on. So I started saying like no to such events. At the same time, I wanted to be able to network with all of my class fellows. We were about 40, gender balance was pretty good, and about 10 international students. But what I ended up doing was inviting people over for lunch, brunch, like, let's go out to this Pakistani place. And that really helped. And now the connections that I formed, even now, if I'm in a city and someone from my program is coming, they always make it a point to reach out to me. I mean, are you here? Let's grab lunch together. I went to Rome, and one of my white friends, she paid for all of my food for like 3 days, wouldn't let me pay. And Americans normally don't do that. And I was like, Emily, you're turning into like a Pakistani girl. She's like, Aman, you've taught me, and I won't let you pay. But it was crazy to see that. And now that I think about, 2 of my friends are planning on joining the US Senate at some point in the next 10 years. And I'm the only Muslim friend that they have. I'm the only Pakistani friend they've ever had. And knowing that I might have made even the tiniest of changes in their opinion or what they thought. I had Navy, like 3 or 4 people from the Navy in my program, from the Marine Corps. Just the fact that I was able to be there with them and inform their opinion of what they thought about Muslims or Pakistanis is still so, I feel so empowered by it. Okay, at the very least, I might have influenced them in some tiny way. So even if you don't do it for yourself, if you're trying to fit in, you never be as authentic as Sadia said, right? You'll always kind of feel like an upstart or someone trying to fit in. Be yourself. People appreciate it. I remember when one of my professors found out from Pakistan, political science class, he would always make a point about General Musharraf. He'd be like, Aman, you know, General Musharraf did this and this and this. Throughout the entire class, he'd make, he'd be like Benazir Bhutto, and he'd be mentioning it just for me, that I would remain engaged in the class. So I really appreciated that, just talking to professors, talking to people, and go outside of your, Pakistani Indian bubble as well. There's so many people from like Trinidad and Tobago and other places that you would normally never really kind of talk to or meet or interact with. So a lot of, I feel, LUMS alumni that I've seen, at least in the Bay Area, tend to kind of stick with Pakistani and Indian circles. I'd say go beyond that. Meet everyone, talk to everyone. We have so much to share with the world. People love dal chawal, by the way. I mean, my dal chawal was terrible back at MIT, but even then, like my Israeli Jewish neighbor would go around the entire campus telling people, oh, that's my neighbor who makes amazing lentils, and she's amazing. So do those things. And I know for some people that might be a lot of a burden to represent an entire country or a religion. But even if you do it in the slightest of ways, it goes so far and beyond that you can't even realize how much of an impact you could eventually have in your life.
Exactly.
Yes, go ahead, Sadia.
I'm just going to echo what Aman said, because you when you are in a grad school, you're actually, no matter how much you can deny, you are representing where you come from. It's true. And if you work with these people very honestly, you're going to have a lot of assignments with these individuals, and you're just being authentic and you're being kind. Kindness goes a long way. If you're being kind, if you're being authentic, humans always remember kindness. That's one thing that all of us can say we'll never forget in our life, if somebody has ever been kind to you. And when I was in grad school, I lost my mother, unfortunately, at that time. And it was very heartbreaking. It happened suddenly. It was right a week before my final exams in my second semester. I couldn't go back in time. But I remember at that time I was a TA and I was a teaching assistant, and this entire community of people who were in my class and who were working with the professor, I got so much support from them. And these people were not Pakistanis. These people were from all over the world. And the amount of support they gave, and the reason I think why people are kind. At the end of the day, you're kind to them, you're being honest with them, they will remember, they will probably even now go back and say, I knew this person who was from Pakistan. If somebody's saying something bad about Pakistan, if they've had a good interaction with you, they would remember that. So just be genuine on how you represent where you're coming from. And I think you're also representing not only your country, you're representing your parents and your household. So think about it that way. Every action is going to be noticed.
Just a follow-up question to that, does that added like extra pressure to be representing Pakistan, your religion, your gender, like especially when you're a minority? Like, is that extra pressure, or is that something that's just like fun to have on the side?
I don't know about others, but I have enjoyed it. I have actually enjoyed the fact that I'm there, I'm telling people a little bit about, this is what we believe in, this is what we don't do. And I'll give you a very, very simple example. When you're very authentic and you're honest, and if you have genuine people, they are never going to make fun of you. And it's always better to be surrounded by genuine people. And if you have people who are making fun of you, you probably can easily make up your mind that you're not going to be in that company. So I always believe in the philosophy, now that I've have lived a life, that it's better to be surrounded by 4 genuine people than by 20 people out of which there's only one genuine person, because that's more authentic. So when you're truly representing yourself, I'll give an example. So when I was very open about the fact that I'm Pakistani, I don't drink, don't go to parties, and I am not dating. I don't date. I don't believe in that philosophy, right? So that was my way of thing. And honestly, this girl reached out to me. She was an American, okay? And she reached out to me and she said that, Sadia, you tell me about this, but there's this Pakistani guy who's being a sleazeball with me. Okay, and he's married. Okay, so how do you take that? So just think about that. That was a very embarrassing moment. I was like, oh my God, seriously? And the girl was actually pretty much harassed. She didn't go into the computer lab because he was acting very weird with her. So what he was representing was also, I don't know what, it was very embarrassing for me. So, but she came up and she talked to me. Why did she do that? Because she probably felt very comfortable on how she was feeling. So I think, Anusha, it's more like you have to surround yourself with people and you will know. And if people are making fun, and if they probably don't have the same mindset as you, and it's always better to surround yourself with people who have the similar mindset as you.
That makes sense. Rashna and Sana, you? Okay, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I can go ahead after you.
No, I was just gonna say like one thing, like if anytime you feel like the pressure of being a Muslim or a Pakistani representative is too much, honestly, just say, this is what I think, but I'm not a representative of my country. You can just say that. That's perfectly fine. You don't have to have the burden of like always representing a Muslim or always representing a Pakistani. Even though we're pretty homogenous, there is a level of diversity even in our beliefs, like even in Pakistan, in Lahore, in Lams, yeah. So you can just say that. It's pretty straight. Like, nobody minds if you say that. So that's perfectly fine too.
You'll make of it what you'll make of it. That's exactly what it is, And that's the good part about being in the United States. You see so many different kinds of people. It really doesn't make a difference. So be true to yourself.
Yes.
Adding on to what Mariam, Sadia, and Aman said, like there is some really good points. But I feel like one thing which like sometimes you often feel here is the imposter syndrome, that we don't belong here and we just got lucky being here. So I think it's very important to, as a first year student, like it was very important for me to keep reminding myself that I'm here to learn, and like it's just my first year and it's okay sometimes if I don't know things, or if I'm just like, if you make some mistakes. And I think what really helped me was that before coming here, I had this talk with Dr. Mubin, and she really, like, she walked me through the entire process of coming here. She really guided me in of how it's going to be right. She was the one who told me that, you'll get to work with seniors and, like never get intimidated by them. And so like her words and like along with a lot of other things she said, they always like stick with me. And like, so I try to remind myself that like, those seniors that I would be working with, they are like, they have been like, for example, doing their PhD since 1 or 2 years. So it's natural for them to know more, and it's natural for us to take some time to get there. So I think that's one important thing that we need to keep reminding ourselves. And another thing is that for to find a good support system, there are a lot of women societies. So make sure that you join them so that you gather more women support. Or for if you're an international student, you can join a lot of international orientations. In your first year, your university arranges a lot of international orientations. So if you do attend them, it will provide you an avenue for you to get in touch with people who belong from the same culture, from the same area as you. So that really helps a lot. In terms of housing, as I think Mariam mentioned, my parents were also really wanted me to apply for grad housing. They were really comfortable with it, but grad housing are really expensive. It's really expensive. So for the first year, I did stay in grad housing. It was very convenient, and I didn't have to worry about a lot of things, utilities and everything. But once I was here for a year. After a year, I moved out and found a cheaper place. So, so for the first year, who have problems in convincing their parents, grad housing is always a good option. And I would say, before, it's always a good idea to connect to seniors. I think as these guys mentioned, you always have alumni in a lot of places. So there were some alumni in Northwestern that we did not directly know, and a professor mentioned that so, and we reached out to them for different problems that we could have. Our professor, one of our professors, gave his email address, and we just emailed them asking about a lot of different things. And so people do really help out. For example, what housing is cheaper, safer. So do reach out to people, talk to your advisors. They do know a lot of things about here. So yeah, that always helps.
It's a fair point, Rashna. Sana, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, just reiterating what Rashna said, my parents were also very high on you have to go to a grad housing, and that was the only way they'll be sending me. So that's why for my first year I did grad housing, and in that year I convinced them that I want to shift to my own apartment next. But grad housing really did help with the transition. I don't regret it at all, because everything was done for us. There was a front desk, and they would look over everything. There was free electricity, water was free. You didn't have to pay for anything. You didn't have to pay for your Wi-Fi. So that was really convenient for the first year. Plus, there were a bunch of students in the grad housing itself. So it was easy to meet friends because we were all in the same building and everyone was new, and everyone wanted to interact with each other. Secondly, for my grad life, what helped a lot was that I was actively seeking out friends. I desperately wanted to surround myself with people who I could have a good time with. And one of the good things was that everyone was seeking out friends. There were a million international student events, and everyone was going out and talking to other people. So that was nice, and that made me meet a lot of new people from different races and cultures and all. So yeah, I would suggest go out and meet a lot of people, because that also mostly helped during COVID, when there was no we were living alone and our motivations were down and mental health was getting affected. So one thing we made sure of was to meet twice or thrice a week, so that at least we had that thing going, and that helped a lot. So yeah, that's it.
Talking about that, Sana, you mentioned friendship, right? Ma'am Mubin told us that Rashna and Sana are friends. So can you talk about how that helped you in applying in life there, having a friend with you?
That helped a lot. That changed our lives for the better. Obviously, we're roommates, so we did everything together. We I don't know, anything apartment hunting we did together, any tax related stuff we did together. We hung out together. We had the same group. We gave each other motivation. We're in the same PhD program, so we'd discuss stuff. And if one of us were down, we'd give each other advice. So that was good, because she was in the exact same position as I was. So that was perfect, actually.
Yeah, I would just add on to what Sana said. Initially, as Sana mentioned, we were told to, space out our universities, not apply to a lot of places. I remember initially we were just okay, Jana, overlap nahi ho, and we divide universities. And so me and Sana were part of the same friends group, and we figured that there's an overlap with Northwestern, and we were both slightly scared, and we were like, okay, it's fine, it's just 2 of us, and it's just one university, and we are applying to a lot of other places. So here we'll just go ahead and not remove an overlap and just both of us apply. So once both of us got our offers, that was like really nice, because it really helps. It really helped with convincing the parents, and they were like, after I got my offer, my parents were also super comfortable, because they know that Sana and we were both from the same city, so we took the same flight, and so it was like really. They were also very comfortable that we will be here together. And after coming here in the initial time, like obviously when you don't know before you make other friends, like we had each other, and a lot of things, like for classes, sometimes it's easier, we live in the same apartment, you just tell each other to a wake up call, or it's more like living in slums in dorms. So that definitely has helped a lot, like it eases out the process. So
Yeah, just to add, like I wouldn't have been able to come if there wasn't like Rashna. Like my parents would never have allowed me. Also, like I didn't end up finishing my last answer, but I wanted to add that the reason I was motivated to apply for a PhD was that it was like completely paid for. And I know that shouldn't be your reason. I did want to do research, but like what pushed me to apply for a PhD primarily was because it was paid, and that would make it easier for me to convince my parents. Also, secondly, like I don't know if you guys know this, but for PhD, research is the most important thing on your resume and on your SOP. Like GPA and GRE doesn't matter that much, it's research. So like if you want to apply for a PhD, you have to focus on that. Sorry, did someone say something? Okay, yeah, that's about it.
Okay. We have a question from Hira in the chat. It says that how do you go about dividing universities? Like what metrics came into play, especially now that there is COVID? We are told to apply to more places. How do you how that should go?
So what we did was that we were we ourselves were, like as Sana mentioned, we are like a huge group, 25 people, and like a lot of 20 of us were applying for like CS positions. So we did make this spreadsheet, and we encouraged other people from a batch to fill it, like like the universities that you're applying to, so we could easily see where there is like an overlap. And wherever there was an overlap, we would obviously talk to Sarfari, then other like advisors and Mamobeen, like whoever your advisor is, and which university would be a good fit for you. And so that's how like we divided the places. So like even like during COVID, like I would suggest like you guys can do that. You would have your own CS badge group, so you can perhaps circulate that. This does require a lot of coordination, and everyone to be willing to adjust your preferences,
And not a snake about it.
yeah, and it's like it's for the betterment of everyone. It actually helps everyone. And also like once you get an offer from a good place, it's I think part of good ethics to withdraw your offer from like where you don't want to go, so that actually improves everyone's chances. So yeah, that's what we did. We had a spreadsheet, and we talked to advisors, and like we were willing to shift our offers. And
I would have one more advice on that one. When you're dividing the universities, there are a lot of programs after computer science that you could go into. It just doesn't have to be computer science. There are programs like engineering management. There are programs like management information systems. There are programs like operations management. There are programs like data and analytics. So I would also advise that try to have a variety in the kind of programs that you could get in. And that also really helps, because each of these departments have their own metrics to follow. Something else that I would also suggest when you're dividing universities and when you're picking schools, look into the diversity stats of that school. If you're going into a school that's very diverse, the probability of employers coming into that school is much higher. And employers were seeking diversity. A lot of employers in the US now are looking for diverse candidates, people with different backgrounds and different ways of approaching things. So look into schools where there is diversity is a huge factor. Also, when you're applying, look into schools, and this data is really available. Where do the alumni end up working in? And to me, that was one of the biggest things in GW because of the employment that comes post GW because of its location. So don't underestimate that factor. Just don't think about the 2 years or 3 years. Think about beyond that. What does it mean to employment? What are the kind of employers that are coming here and hiring? What are the diversity stats? Because diversity impacts not only your time during grad school, you'll have an opportunity to meet different kinds of people. It is also going to really help when you start looking for employment.
Okay.
Just a quick
I'm
note.
glad you brought.
Sorry, Nushi. Just a quick note, Sadi. I loved your advice on applying to different programs. Just a side note of caution there: when you do that, make sure your SOP is like tailored to that particular program.
Of course.
It's very easy to like copy paste and send the same thing, because what they are looking for is like a good narrative that you want to be here. This is what you're trying to get from the degree. Where do you want to be? If that story is missing, then you're not going to have a good chance of getting in. The SOP has to be very convincing, that you're very clear about what you're trying to do. Because I mean, I applied to different programs as well other than CS. So when you do that, just be very careful. You don't need to mention each and every research project that you've done at LUMS, or include everything under the sun, because some people do end up doing that. I end up seeing a few SOPs every year, and that is something that people end up doing a lot. So just be very careful about your SOPs, looking at the research that happens in those programs already, referencing maybe particular professors or particular research that you're interested in. So be very focused when you do that, rather than just copying and pasting your SOP everywhere. One basic SOP is how you start off, everything you want to potentially include, and then use that as like a template, but then kind of cater to each one separately and alter the story accordingly.
Exactly. What a great add-on. You cannot have a generic SOP. You need to be very specific. And when I'm saying about apply to different kinds of programs, it doesn't mean that I need to apply for the sake of applying. You need to have a genuine interest, because that's going to reflect in your SOP. But in computer science and technology, there's a vast majority of fields now. You can go in so many different areas. You can do so many different things. So bank on that, because I think LUMS is giving you a good foundation. Now think about how do you want to specialize and where you want to go.
Okay, that's great advice. Following up on that, if people want to apply for example, I think Mariam and Aman applied for technology policy, and I think Sadia, you said you went into information management or something.
Yes, but I went into information management.
Yeah. So my question is कि जो LUMS है उसकी niche थोड़ी networks की है, तो most of the good professors जो हैं वो networks में काम कर रहे होते हैं, network security, internet measurements. So if somebody wants to make a shift, for example, go into fields like you guys did in like judiciary related या policy related, so how do you tailor your SOP about that? कि मैंने courses ज़्यादातर इस तरह किस्म के लिए, did you like take courses like that? Did you do other leadership positions which helped you with tailoring your SOP to different like programs? How did you go about that?
For me, my work experience really helped, and that was very deliberate on my part. I wanted to work for a couple of reasons. I wanted to work for a year, at least a year, because number one, I wanted to save some money. That was also part of it. And secondly, when I started working, I didn't apply as soon as I graduated from LUMS. I waited. I wanted to just work. And with that, for me, what I realized at that time, that this is what I want to do. I want to go into engineering management. I wanted to go into more management information systems. And I started planning accordingly to do activities and things which would speak to that. So for instance, when for my program, when I'm applying into management information systems, I wanted to show my organizational leadership. So a few things that I did at work, I tailored it mostly in a way that it would help me to apply. I ended up leading a lot of things in my small firm for the QA department. And it gave a lot of edge to my application, because I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to build organizations, technology organizations. I want to implement software there. So for me, it was a very thoughtful process. It's a lot of my friends applied immediately. I wanted to be more thoughtful in terms of where I want to apply, and my work experience helped me so that I could decide how to do it.
Okay. Would anybody like to add to this?
Yeah, I can add on. So for me, I was researching with Dr. Freed on judiciary, and so as part of the Technology for People initiative. So that was super helpful for the TPI, for the technology, for the technology and policy program. So that was important. But then two of the other programs that I applied to at Harvard and Stanford were for education technology. and I had no research experience in that regard. But where I wanted education to kind of go for myself, so looking at how I had been taught over the years and what was missing, and then bringing the tech aspect to that, I've worked on other projects in terms of technology. I just need the education domain of it and the pedagogy to inform that, to be able to come up with education technology solutions. So I feel that was convincing enough, but then recommendations added onto your SFP that can also be tailored to that. When people see that in you, or your professors can kind of vouch for you that, you know, there is a legitimate interest, that says a lot as well. And just wanted to quickly add a note on imposter syndrome, because Rashna, thank you for bringing it up as well. I feel जो हमें रगड़ा मिलता है over time in Pakistan, वो average American को नहीं मिलता. Or whether it's O levels, A levels, LUMs, we worked so hard over the years. When you go there, you end up realizing people will come to you for help as well, because you're going to be better than the average student. At least we're prepared to be there, because we have put in more effort in our lives than any average American high schooler has. So have that confidence in you. The fact that people never look down on me, they never knew about a university in Pakistan. No one knows about LUMs when you go there. At times they don't, if there's no prior precedents. So I never ever felt that someone looked down on me because of it. They always kind of included me in study projects, or where asking me, for like help and advice. So be very confident. LUMS teaches you really well to be able to express your opinion, to be able to survive in a highly competitive environment. Because LUMS is no easy joke. It's not an easy game at all. So you're studying with the smartest people in Pakistan. We're some of the smartest people in the world. One of my former bosses used to say, all of the programming talent in the world is in Pakistan and India. The best of it is in Pakistan and India. So be sure of that. Be very confident. We worked our butts off. Sorry, excuse my English, but we worked hard for this. So don't ever think that you're there by mistake. People have probably assessed at least 4 or 5 people have looked at your application and said that you have to be there. So count on that. Those people have been seeing candidates over the years. They've seen thousands of applications, and if they pick you, you are there for a reason. So never ever kind of underestimate that.
Yes, I second that one. I did not realize it early in my career, but now that I look back, I think LUMS has taught me a lot. And there are 2 things that I attribute to LUMS. Number 1 is that ragra, which is hard work, right? It teaches you hard work. Even if you're just an average student, everybody works hard in LUMS. That is for sure. And the second thing is confidence. When you have that inherent confidence, which LUMS as an institution wants to build in you. You may think you have lower confidence compared to your fellows in LUMS, but when you go outside, having that LUMS background and having that confidence and hard work, the hard work has really helped me. Because when I even started working and I was growing in my career, I would realize people complaining about things. To me, it was like, okay, just do it. It's okay. This is not a big deal. And even in grad school, I realized that, oh, this is not happening and I can't do this much. I'm like, okay, it's going to be okay. So I think that foundation that you're getting from LUMS, it's going to take you a long way. At least it has taken me a long way. So you will bank on that one.
Mariam, did you like to add something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if anyone asks me at any time in my life, is MIT harder or LUMS, I'm gonna say LUMS, hands down. Like hands down, LUMS is harder. Like at MIT, there's like a lot of support and a lot of spoon feeding, you could say. Like if you're stuck, they have like so many ways that you can go forward with it. At LUMS, if you're stuck, well, you gotta learn yourself, you gotta do it yourself. And it has like, I remember incidences where it was very like tough and like honestly painful being at LUMS, but you realize that since you have like an entire batch who's going through the pain with you, that helps. You don't realize, but a lot of the things that I do now, people are like, Mariam, like, how are you able to do this? Like, this was like, what did you do? And I was like, yeah, I was up at till 4 a.m. That's perfectly fine. I mean, I had to do the work, so it's cool. And they're like really surprised by that. And I'm like, no, it's LUMS. It's all LUMS.
Like I remember discrete math assignments. So Zoha, Aisha, I don't know, you might have heard from them in other sessions. We used to be up all night doing discrete math assignments. My husband asked me, he's like, why didn't you do these during the day? मैंने कहा, time कहाँ मिलता था LUMS में? You had no time. Her assignment, my programming assignment, it would take us hours in the lab. मैंने कहा, there was no time, so we had to stay up all night, attend a class. उसके बाद हम जाके सोते थे. So there were times I would run literally in my night suit to submit a discrete math assignment and then go back to sleep. So उस तरह का MIT में मुझे I think एक भी शायद all nighter, शायद एक total all nighter मैंने मारा हो, but LUMS में तो हर वक्त हर दूसरा दिन used to be all nighter.
To the softs here who are taking discrete math, you can end up at MIT. Just chill out. Okay, we have some questions. एक सवाल ये है कि most of you are studying or working in CS, but do you have any suggestions for someone who is losing interest in their degree in the final year and want to look at other options? What should one do if they want to pursue a grad degree but not really in CS?
I think as Sadia said, sky is the limit. CS has grown so much. There's so many different directions. Pick something that you like. Data analytics, engineering. I know a lot of my class fellows used to make fun of me for it. Ki, oh yes, ne apna SS type isne koi field pick kar liya, social sciences wala. But it's not. So if it's the first, try to identify what's bothering you. Is it the programming aspect of it? Is it the theoretical aspect of it? Because I know a few theory wale courses like completely destroyed me. I was like, I don't care about this, but I love databases on the other hand. So pick what you do like out of CS. You can't just say कि मुझे पूरा CS ही नहीं पसंद. There must have been at least one course that you must have liked. Go into that, look up Coursera, look at Udemy, look at courses that kind of go further on in that direction. See if you still have that interest. Play on that strength in your SOP and apply for that particular program. Because if you did really well in a databases course, you could probably go into database administration, you could go into data engineering, analytics. So there's just so many different options there. So first do a little round of introspection. Look at what you do like and what you don't like. Identify that. Don't just paint all of CS with one big paintbrush. So pick that thing and then kind of follow on with it. That would be my advice.
And I think to add to that one of the misconceptions about technology in the workplace is technology is all about programming. Technology is not all about programming. Programming is just one piece of a big slew of things in technology. So if you want to change a field, oh, because I cannot program, there are so many other ways. Data analytics, your data engineering is one, but in data analytics, there are specialized fields in which you don't need that much programming. There are more theories out there. There's a lot of security work out there, which is huge, right? Criminal justice is based on a lot of security things. So that's one other thing. So I agree with Aman. What do you not like about CS? And pick on your strength. I'll give another example. Like, for instance, and people are very analytical. Some people are very analytical, but they're not good in programming if you don't like programming, right? So there are things in that as well. There are things in program and program management, organizational management that you could take your CS degree and then start applying. So explore what you don't like. Why do you want to leave CS? But I have an example as well of one of my class fellows from LUMS. She graduated in computer science and she went into law. She ended up doing law and she's a lawyer now. So sky is the limit. Nobody's going to come and say that, oh, you shouldn't apply here, you shouldn't apply here. Keep your options really open. Don't restrict yourself. And do not restrict yourself just because your friends are applying here or there. I think at a certain age when we're graduating, we get really influenced by friends. And that would be my thing. Don't get influenced by that. Look at your own strength. What do I want to do?
And tech is everywhere. You can't hide from it. And COVID has proven that as well. Now, all the e-commerce solutions that are coming up, everyone has to go online. So you will experience tech everywhere that you go. There's also digital marketing. There's just you having a computer science degree makes you super important to literally every function out there in the business. Like if you were to go and work in a marketing team, everyone will love you because marketing has tools and they usually hire one person per tool because no one in marketing wants to deal with a bunch of different applications. So if you can be that one person who knows the entire marketing technology stack, everyone in the company will love you. So it's just, you can't hide from it. There's so many options out there. So don't be like, it's not, it's the best degree you can do at this point in time. So you have that solid foundation. You just need to pick where you want to be.
That's great to hear. With that, we can enter our next phase, which is our final phase before we reach the conclusion, which is life after grad school. So for people who are still pursuing their degrees, unke liye sawal ye hai ki where do you see yourself 5 years down the lane? And for those, I think Aman and Sadia are part of the industry. For you guys, the question is, what are some difficulties you face in the as a female in the workplace, and how do you overcome them?
Since I'll be graduating soon, I guess I'll go first because this is something I do ask myself as well. Ideally, where I want to work in is in an overlap between like security, privacy, and risk space. And it is something that's become much more important, just like in light of fake news, misinformation, how like the security environment has been like developing. So that is an area that I want to work in. Where exactly I want to work in is something that I'm like still looking at. And the whole to have a program, a career which involves like active programming versus a career which does not involve active programming is something that I'm actually like right now going through, and both of them have like their pros and cons. What I've decided to do is like I've started like reaching out to people, and that's like MIT alums, professors, and just like asking their advice. Because like even though I'm like one of the panelists right now, I require panelists in life. So that is something that I'm doing. But definitely like touching with the whole I don't like CS anymore thing. There is a lot of like there's a lot of options that you can pursue. What you need to do is like really take concrete steps in terms of like researching what is out there, like what the like industry or the schools demand versus like what your interests are, and then like match those.
Okay. Rashna and Sana, would you like to continue this discussion before we go to Aman and Sadia?
I'll go ahead. So 5 years is a long time considering we're just in the second year of PhD. But I think I like to imagine myself in an industrial research position. Like right now, I'm more inclined towards that. And yeah, I don't really have much to say on this because, yeah.
Yeah, I can go. One of the things I've realized is that like PhD can go on for really long and you don't need to have an answer right now. Like I keep switching between academia and industry, and that's fine. Like you need to decide 3 or 4 years down the lane. So like you don't need to worry about that right now, and you can go either way. So it's like,
Okay, that makes sense. Like you're just as confused as we are, and we appreciate that. Okay, Aman and Sadia, do you want to go ahead about the difficulties in the workplace and how you overcome it?
Sure. So I think first of all, the values thing was super important to me when I was interviewing with companies. Maria mentioned like not shaking hands. Her friend didn't shake hands. I'm the same. I don't shake hands with men, and that was super important to me. So even during the interview process, I kind of made that apparent. I'm like, I'm so sorry, I don't shake hands with men, but thank you so much, whatever. It was always awkward initially, but then I started using it with humor. I'd be like, I don't shake hands, but I can give you an air high five, and that caught on in the entire company. So everyone started saying air high fives all around. I mean, this is great. We're all being very nice and safe. And now with COVID, I don't think people ever want to shake hands, maybe for the next few weeks, right? So it's a lot easier. But people are actually started taking it very nicely and lightly, so which was great. But I think first of all, really, I don't want to compromise on my values. The imposter syndrome again is real. It does happen. One thing that I was at a leadership conference recently, and the coach mentioned how men normally look at job descriptions and they'll apply even if they fit only 70% of the criteria. As women, like for instance, I've always looked through the entire job qualification, made sure I had was at least 95 to 100%. I had everything in me before applying. Apparently, men do that only look at about 70% of the qualification. If they fulfill those, they go ahead and they apply for a job. So statistically, women tend to look for 90% or 95% of fitting that criteria. So that was a huge kind of eye opener for me, because I always look at trying to fulfill everything. So one thing was to just apply, even if you meet 75 or 80% of the criteria, go ahead and apply. Some employers are very willing to kind of let you grow into a role. So that's like the first, when you're applying, just apply. If you like the job, you have at least sufficient experience, do it. So that's one of the things that was important to me. And then just being there and being a platform to other people. So when I joined, on the values piece, sorry, I keep going on about this, but I had to go to HR because I had been using the mother's room for praying, and I told them I feel really bad. At times there's like a line of women and they need to go in and use it. I feel really guilty. And what HR did in like a week, they transformed one of the meeting rooms into a prayer room, added frosted glass, and got me a yoga mat. They were like, we made a prayer room for you. Here's a yoga mat that you can pray on. And I never paid on a yoga mat, but thank you, I'll try it out. But thank you. And it meant so much to me. And I figured out that they were employees in the company that had been praying inside of closets. They were janitors who had been praying inside of closets. And now they also had the opportunity to use this new prayer room. So be a platform for other people, be a platform for other women, and how people will formulate their interactions around you. So if you kind of set that precedent, it'll be easy for everyone else to interact with other Muslims who, let's say, who join the company, other women who join the company. So in tech, generally the gender imbalance will always be there. I mean, hopefully it'll improve over time, but right now it is there. But try to find strength from within women in the workplace. That's been really working for me. I try to rally people together, have like women high tea, virtual high teas recently with COVID, and just be the one who kind of brings people together. So as a result, you kind of get this sort of prominence in the company. People appreciate you going beyond just your job to bring people in, and that's really been helpful to me. But then other than that, I say just be yourself and be and I think people will eventually realize that you're smart and that you're willing to contribute once they see beyond whatever preconceived notions that they have about Pakistanis or about Muslims. Because for me, well, I'm so identifiably Muslim, there are people I interact with who've never seen a Muslim before. So I can always see that sort of hesitance in the first 5 minutes. They're trying to figure me out. That always happens. But then I try to use, like Sadia said, play on your strengths. I use humor a lot, like make jokes out of things. And recently, one of the CFOs in our company, he pointed out, he's like, and it meant so much to me. He was like, Aman, I really appreciate how much levity you add to our business, to the executives, when you bring your jokes in and your humor. It's helped us so much to kind of get through COVID and these tough times, is you being that voice inside of every meeting and adding that lightheartedness in the tone. So play on your strengths and, you'll go a long way. So that's what I've learned. I'll stop talking now.
That's amazing. So I am going to echo what Aman is saying, but I would want to add a few more things to it. Number one is, you are a minority. When you're a woman in technology, you are a minority, and the sooner you accept that, the better it is for your own sanity. I have always been a firm believer throughout my career. If I am there and I have immigrated from Pakistan, of course, you can tell from my accent, I was not born and raised here. It's very obvious. And you're the only one in the room, with the room full of men and a room full of people of other ethnicities, but you would hardly find women who are originally from Pakistan and who are in IT. Make that your strength. Don't be shy about the fact that, oh, I'm the only one and this just lowers my confidence. Be more confident because you're unique. The more you start thinking that way, I'm unique, what I bring to this table, my experiences have shaped me to be who I am today. And the more confidence you have in your experiences and in your beliefs, people will see that. And I've been and what it really helped me, early in my career, and I've actually had a lot of discrimination throughout my career. There are times when I've seen undertones. There are times when I have been excluded by men. There are times when, because of being a Muslim, people have said things to me that they weren't supposed to say. And, for me, it has always been by the fact that I'm going to be who I am. And it's good that I would rather be surrounded by genuine people and grow in a company that's genuine than to try to fit in a company which doesn't value diversity. And for me, that has really helped because my entire career has been shaped accordingly. And it also helps because when you are diverse, when you are different, and people know you're different, you know the true colors of people. When I see senior executives, when I interact with them, and when I see people who work with me or for me, you can always tell who is genuine and who is not, because you have that different eye, because you're different. Somebody who's part of the crowd will never know who's a genuine person, but others will end up knowing. So that's my biggest advice. Just be proud of the fact that you are different. What you bring to the table is very different. You are at the table in the workplace because you bring a strength that somebody else may not. And there were times early in my career that I was in a department where I was probably the only woman, and these men were not very nice. They weren't. It was very obvious they had a bias with me because I was a Muslim, and they also had a bias also because I was a woman. And that's okay, good for them, good for them and what they do. I ended up changing that department, moving to a different place, and you will start finding the right people if you look for the right people. And that's only going to happen if you're confident in who you are. If you have lack of confidence in who you are, you will always find the wrong people. So it's not about changing the world. It's about starting with changing yourself, and then the world around you will slowly and gradually start changing, and you will notice the difference. So it's always going to be there. Don't let it discourage you. There will be times when you'll be absolutely discouraged in the workplace. There'll be times when somebody else will get an opportunity that you didn't. You start finding other opportunities, and it's just going to work out. I do want to talk about what Aman said, the 75%. You look through all the checklist, and I'm actually a living example of this. When my previous role, and I'm the head of data integrations for Mass Mutual, this job came to me just through networking. And when I got the job description, it was more around, oh, this is a very big role in a company. And I said, I have not done a lot of data integrations. I've mostly done IT portfolios end to end and led those programs and those teams for development. I looked into the job description and I said, done. So literally I was probably 60% there. And I said, you know what? I'm going to apply. What's the worst that's going to happen? Let me just apply. And when I applied and they interviewed me, I realized that they really wanted me for what I was bringing to the table. And within 4 days, I got the job offer. And this is post-COVID, by the way. After COVID, after March, they interviewed me, and I was working, and I said I cannot be interviewed during office hours. They became flexible to interview me after the first interview, after office hours. So I was actually interviewing till 6 p.m., till 6:30 p.m. And I think I was interviewed on Tuesday, and by Friday, I got the verbal offer. So basically, that was the reason, right? If I would have just looked at the job description, sometimes it doesn't say that much. Look into the job description, and if you're meeting the bare minimum, because a lot of things are not mentioned in the job description, when you stop and you find out and you realize, oh my God, I'm good for this role. And I've been now playing this role for like 6 months. And I think it was one of the best decisions I ever made. So that comes with confidence. It takes a while, and you'll use that confidence to your advantage. Find your strength. Do not get intimidated. That there's somebody who's really smart. Somebody ends up coding 10 times faster than you. Well, that's good for them. You probably do something else that's better, right? Each one of us are unique. So look into your uniqueness. And the moment you start doing that, I've learned from experience, it is going to get simpler.
That's such an amazing thing to say, Sadia. मुझे अभी बताया है मेरी टीम ने कि we're 40 minutes above the time limit. I did not realize. I was so into this. So we should probably go move towards the conclusion. Conclusive जो conclusion है वो यही है कि what advice do you guys have for girls applying abroad or applying for jobs, even because Aman and Sadia can also speak on that. As an ending note, what advice do you have for people like us right now who are really confused and lost and we don't know where life is going?
Regarding applying, Anusha, or regarding anything?
Regarding anything, whatever you think would be helpful for us. You know best.
So the one thing that I would say, one advice that I would really encourage everyone, not just women, is find opportunities. And if you see opportunities, never say that, oh, maybe I'm not a good fit. Always participate and try to get the opportunity, because you sometimes don't realize that things, they work out as long as you make the effort. Mm-hmm. I have had so many instances in my life where I did something for very different reasons, and that turned out to get me something really amazing. So if you see an opportunity, this is for freshmen, sophomores, juniors, seniors. If you see an opportunity, go ahead and push for it. go ahead and find opportunities, because honestly, there is a lot out there. And never say that, oh, maybe there's so many other good people, I'll never be a good fit, or I'm not good enough. Like, what's the worst that can happen? You won't get in, and that's perfectly fine. As long as like you make an effort and you like put your foot forward, that's what matters.
Okay.
So my advice would be, and Miriam, that's a great advice, and I would add on to that one is you're in a situation, COVID is happening, and we all hope COVID is temporary. So my biggest advice here would be a little more strategic in what you want to do, where you want to be. When you are thinking a little more strategically, this is what I want to do in the next 3 to 5 years. Sometimes you may know, sometimes you may not know, but at least think about it. That will help shape your actions. That will help shape you find the right next step. And there is no degree, there is no school, there is nothing for which you say, oh, this is beyond me, or this is too little for me, because you do not know what opportunities it may bring for you. So that's kind of going on Mariam's advice as well. There's something to be done, grab it, do it. You think everything that you do now after you graduate from LUMS as a learning. Everything has to be a learning. And don't get into this haste of, oh, I didn't get into this school, or I need to get into a school by this time frame. It's different. It's your own pace. Some people work after undergrad. Some people don't want to work. Some people go for a PhD. So everybody has a different mindset. Do not do a comparison. Take a step back. Where do you want to be? You know, do you want to be a researcher? Is that what you like? Do you want to go into industry? Do you want to do coding? Do you don't want to do coding, right? So all these are things to think about. When you take a step back, think through it, apply to schools accordingly, and focus on your strength. What is the strength that I can bring to the table? When you think about your strengths, it's really going to help with your statement of work, whatever that is. I'm even forgetting SOPs, right? It's been such a long time. So just focus on the strength. Don't be intimidated. You have your own journey, and think about what's right for you.
To add on to what Mariam and Sadia said, that yes, do not let go of an opportunity. Like you all should apply. And another thing, as we mentioned, like parental and other cultural restrictions, it could be pretty daunting. And like, but if you can convince your parents, it's all like don't be scared by the process. If you can, do go ahead and convince them, because it's all worth it in the end. It's a different experience to be here, to study here, like to enjoy the independence. So it's all worth it. So do go ahead.
Yeah, my ending remark would be like similar to Rachna's, that don't let these like uncertain factors decrease your motivation, because at the end of the day, your regret of not applying will always be greater than the regret of applying and not getting in. Like, please apply. So yeah.
I'll keep it short. Don't overthink this. Don't pull yourself down. You're good enough. Just apply. What's the worst that can happen? नहीं होगा. हर किसी को ना बताओ कहाँ apply कर रहे हो बेशक. You know, even if you decide कि चलो university में कर रही हूँ, it's okay. Like people will bring you down. ठीक है जो मर्जी. Just apply. दूसरी thing, reminder for myself and for everyone. Just practice a lot of self-care and taking care of yourself. I feel like I wish I had taken more care of myself over the years. Have like a good exercise routine. Take care of your mental health. This is a stressful time for everyone. You can prioritize yourself as well. So just say that, take care of yourself early on. I regretted my LUMS ne apne aap ko bahut tabah kiya hai. So just take care of yourself and don't get burnt out, because burnout is very easy and it does happen very often.
You'll be discouraged throughout in life. I don't think there've been any individual anywhere who would come and say they were not discouraged. Steve Jobs was let go of by Apple. He was like, think about that, right? He built a company and then he was thrown away till he came back. So do not let the discouraging people take over you, because they are never going to stop. When you know your strength, you know what you need to do, just focus on that. So, and do not surround yourself with negativity. That is my biggest advice, even in your life throughout. When you surround yourself with people with positivity, it's very natural. You you shine through and you have that positive energy, which people can see. So COVID is bad, things are bad, oh, pata nahi kya ho gaya, ye wo, that's, find something good in that. Still apply, still look at your strength, and honestly be positive. And if doesn't happen, koi baat nahi, will happen in 1 year. Doesn't happen, koi baat nahi, I'll do something else. But the resilience that you build, when you're let down, that builds a lot of resilience. We don't realize that. And that resilience shapes you to be the person you are. So have a positive attitude and keep shining. That's it.
And sorry, last thing, Sadhya, I'm just going to add on to that. And it's not like a choice between marriage and padhai and career versus relationships. It's never not. I know lots of successful PhD students with babies who are being awesome moms and also awesome PhD students. It's never an either or. So don't think about that. You know, marriage is not a milestone that you have to hit. You find the right person who's respectful and supportive. You go for it. It'll be great. If not, that's also okay. Be your own person. Marriage does not complete you. You have to be your own person. So that's it. Because I know one of the major pressures that we face is कि भाई शादी नहीं होगी अब आपकी, क्योंकि अब आप MIT चले गए तो शादी कभी नहीं होगी. So never ever think of that.
Okay. Thank you everyone. Thank you so much. ये moderate करना मेरे लिए सबसे मुश्किल था because I'm fangirling like crazy here and I have to keep it in. But thank you so much for being here. You guys are a big inspiration for all of us. When we were like reaching out to people, we did not know we had such amazing alumni, especially female alumni who had made it to big places. Sarfareed gave us a list. वो उन्होंने तो कहा था कि ये सारा event मैं तुम्हें लड़कियों से करवा सकता हूँ. We have that many cool female alumni. So thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate you guys waking up, getting ready, and talking to us for so long. I think we're almost an hour over time, but we could literally listen to you all night. So, but thank you so much for being here. We'd like to take one picture. We take it with every panel. Hayat, can you turn your camera on? Hayat. I'm just gonna hide her.
Okay, I think.
I'm gonna hide her. Okay. Okay, Hayat is here. Good morning. Okay.
Sorry, मेरा mic issue था.
Okay. Marina, are you taking? Okay, I'm also taking 1, 2, 3. Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate it. We're definitely I'm going to hit you guys up with my SOP now. आप लोगों ने offer डाली है. अब I'm going to literally just bug you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you
so much. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.